I said, what was it like when you, and he wouldn't let me finish the sentence. He didn't never said a word, but he lifted up his arm and he pointed. Just like, I know you can't see this, be listening, but Paul can see it. I'm pointing, but I'm pointing to the Father. And that's what Paul did. He pointed to the Father. And I said, well, that's great, but what was it like when you, and he did it again. He wouldn't let me finish the sentence. He pointed to the Father.
So were you with, this is happening while you're with Jesus?
While I'm in God's presence.
Okay.
The Lord is there, of course, but now
Okay.
I'm just literally surrounded by God's presence.
Okay.
And I'm having this conversation with Paul, but it turned out to be quite one-sided because he never spoke a word.
Right.
But actually, and then I asked him the third time. I said, Paul, I know that's great, but what was it? And then he wasn't mad or anything. He really wasn't, but he stopped me even shorter, and he pointed back to the Father. And he was saying to me, and he never said a word to me, David, it's not about me. It's all about him. This is why we're here. It's what he's done. This is all about him. And that has never left me. And then I looked for my Old Testament hero was King David,
Right.
my hero. And the same thing happened. I said, David, what was it? And it happened 3 times again. Every time I asked him, he stopped me short. He never said a word to me. He wasn't being rude. He pointed. He pointed back to the Father. And he says, it's not about me. It's all about him. And then it was kind of strange. I saw somebody there that I didn't know who he was, and the way it came across to me at that point, he was representing somebody that I would know in the future. And this is really the only part of this whole experience that really dealt with future. If those of you who could listen to this think that, I'm going to tell you some kind of futuristic events, that's really not what this is about. But this is really the only thing that really dealt with a futuristic thing in my life, that I was going to meet somebody that was going to have an impact on my life that was of the same character of Paul and David. Of course, we know Paul wasn't perfect, neither was David. But they had a love for God, and they spent their lives showing that it's not about them, it's about God. And I really believe that, and I really believe it's my pastor, that I have right now, Brother Nip, and I know he, as humble as he is, he probably want to hear that. Well, I'm just being honest, because that didn't jump out at me at that point. I mean, I didn't know who it was, but the thought that was hitting me at the time that this was happening, that I would meet somebody someday, because at that time I really needed somebody in my life that would really take a personal interest in me. I needed that. We need to adopt brothers and sisters in the Lord, to be a big brother to them. That's really to do that. Now, I'm going to move on here. I mean, I could really spend a lot of time, with these. I don't want to dwell too long.
Right.
But the next thing I saw, now here's another thing, you're just going to have to bear with me. I saw perfection. And by me describing that in a number of words, I can't explain that to you. I went to Webster's, and the word perfect means complete in all respects, without defect or omission, sound and flawless. That's all fine, well, and good. It's a great thing. Now that's the word perfect. Now I looked under the word perfection, and it said the act or process of perfecting a person or a thing that is the perfect embodiment of some quality. So that's telling me that somebody's trying to reach perfection in a certain area, or they're working towards perfection, but it's not perfection. Now I have never been able to be able to describe that word perfection, but I saw it.
Well, like you were looking at the environment around you?
Yes, what I saw, and we're going to get into this a little different. We're a little deeper here. When I say I saw perfection, I saw the Garden of Eden. I saw it. I saw Adam and Eve, and I don't know what color hair they have, but I knew who it was.
Right.
As a matter of fact, and I want to take this time. I want to thank Norman K. Schultz for their encouragement. They're very dear friends, and it's been their encouragement encouragement to me to put this together, and you, of course, to help me with this, to put this together. But she asked me a question the other day because we were down there on vacation, and we shared this with her class. And she asked me, she goes, what did they look like? You know, did when you say, because when I saw them in this dream of this vision, the glory of God was resting on them.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, what did they look like? You know, were they naked? Did they have fig leaves? And I said, I'm going to be real honest. What I saw, I knew was Adam and Eve, and I saw their faces, but the rest of it was blurry. That's the best way I can explain it to you. And a strange thing happened. Another scripture jumped out at me. Now, this was the one that really was kind of odd, but it, when we look at genealogies, we think they're a waste of time sometimes. It's historical.
Right.
But the Lord pointed me to genealogy in Luke, and the very last one, where it says in it's, I think it's 3:38, where it says, it says, and Seth, begat this, but that one's going backwards. And the last one, it said, and Adam was the Son of God.
Right.
And that scripture just illuminated and just got so big. You know how that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I could see that. I know most of you might not think the significance of that, but there was something so special. God was it was perfect. I saw the animals. I saw the beautiful colors. I saw all of it. It was perfect. Perfect. I don't know what else to say, than that.
Right.
But then I saw how they just threw it away. And I saw how the Lord, He bought it back. I saw, how Calvary, I saw the significance of it. Although we had perfection in our very midst, it was ours. Everything was perfect. And I saw how we willingly gave it up. I saw how the Lord bought it back. We have perfection back. Of course, now in this life, we have perfection, and that's His love for us. It's perfect. Everything that He does for us is perfect. Everything He does with us is perfect.
So you were basically looking at the garden and knowing all that's happened.
It
throughout
happened,
time.
and
Basically, it was lost, but yet restored.
Yeah, it's
So
restored, but
all those thoughts are going
it was it was kind of bittersweet. It was great. It was sorrow there, and it's like, oh my gosh! It. Anytime I hear a preacher or somebody talk Genesis, my heart just jumps because I saw it. I saw what it looked like, and it just, I've heard that verse of scripture where the Lord just hovered over them singing, and it just, it was such a beautiful thing, and it, I'm not crying with tears of sorrow, but these are tears of joy because I know that, the Lord's still there.
Right.
And now I'm gonna dig a little deeper here, and these things that I'm gonna share with you now, they were literally intertwined in the whole time I was in God's presence, from beginning to the end. These thoughts just were there. I got like 4 points here, and I know there's many more, but these 4 that I'm going to share with you now just ran through my heart and my mind the whole time. And it wasn't until recently that what they were, and I'm just gonna give it to you like I got it. And that, I think I was feeling a bit of the heart of God. I was in His midst. I was feeling His heart. And you're just going to have to run with me on this. This is what this is. I'm going to get delivered like I got it, I believe. The first question I'm going to ask, and this first one is a question: why did God make man? Why? I know people have 1,000 different reasons, and the thought that was so prevalent to me was that He was lonely. He was lonely. All God all God has been looking for is for someone to love Him for who He is. Someone that'll believe what He says and act on it. That's all He's ever. He gave us everything. You know, and he'll do it now. You know, he was looking for that in the garden, and he's looking for that today. Nothing's changed. He hasn't changed at all. He is still looking for someone that will just love him for who he is and just believe what he says, you know, and act on it. You know, in other words, you know, we think that serving God is such a chore. You know, well, you know, admittedly, sometimes it may feel that way, but it's for our own good.
Right. You know, one of the scriptures that just popped to mind, I don't know the exact reference, but in Psalms where it says God's eyes are scanning the earth looking for someone who knows him and who seeks him,
Yeah.
who understands him. And you
Wow.
know, it just popped in my mind as you're thinking, like, God's looking for that kind of heart, a heart that says, yes, I want to know you, I want to love you, teach me to walk with you. And I think that's one of the things that David, you know, you talk about your hero David, that
Mhm.
you know, out of all the things going on in the world at that time, yet his eyes were drawn to a boy out in the middle of a shepherd's field.
Right.
You know, and David, as we know, is the one man known as after God's own heart. God himself
Beautiful.
said, "This is a man after my own heart."
Beautiful
But-
scripture.
Yeah. But
Beautiful.
Go ahead. I just wanted to bring
No,
that out. It
I-
just popped in my
you
mind
know
as
that.
you were talking.
I love comments. Well, this was the very first point that you know, when the Lord, you know, he was like in it, his teaching. But like I say, this was also, it was just like an ebb and flow. It just flowed everywhere. This thought just stayed with me. It was just like flowing like a river. I guess the best way I can explain it to you. And the second one was that there is more to marriage than what meets the eye. It was this thought that it, you know, Paul in Ephesians calls marriage a mystery. And the only thing I could tell you is that what I experienced is that there's something more to this than what we're seeing. And I, you know, you can only guess why the enemy just hates marriage so and families, because there's something to that. God, you know, God, it was a thing that he founded in the garden, something that he'd set up, but there's more to that. He loves families, but there's just, it's about all I can say in this is that there's something more there, you know, and Paul called it a mystery. So there's something going on there. I you know, I'm just sharing like I'm getting it. And another thing that was weaving in and out is and this one is, and I will admit, is very difficult at times. And I know situations arise, but you know, when we look at man as one, you know, there's different races, different creeds, different belief systems, different nations, you know, so many different races, nationalities. But we're really all one under God's eye, you know.
Right.
We're one, and it's almost like, you know, you go out there and you hate, or, you know, you go out there and you're angry. It's like you're doing it to yourself. You know, the Lord had said, you know, you love, you know, brother as yourself, and it was an underlying thought. It just, you know, I know to some of you this should be obvious, but some of us, we forget that you know, it just. The thought that it was weaving through there. And the fourth one was that all these things that were going on around me, and all these things, you know, after 28 years, unfortunately, some of it has faded a little bit, and I know there was more that goes on, and I have a feeling once, you know, that we're done with this tonight, things are going to come back to me. That's just the way this is. But there is one thing that just stood out more than anything. Jesus himself was just, I can't explain it. Although all this stuff was going on, it just like, he stood out. There was nobody like him. Because of all the things he did, but there was just nobody like him. He was just like, he was almost like a, you know, I hate to use this word, but it's almost like a mystery man. It's like, you know, who is this man that would do this for us? You know, the great thing that he did, he just, you know, that